candidate forum this year. I appreciate you taking the time, and especially you, John, for being here and hosting us. Today we are joined with Timmy Vanderpolder. Did I say that one right?
You got it right.
Okay, cool. Samuel Shahan and Sonia Bolt in order of appearance on the AGM ballot. And we also have, of course, IT, John Kerr, and myself, Josh Bowens, from the Communications Committee with Trang Warline, Elizabeth Vidal, Joel Dobbins, and Ann Cope. Thank you all for being here.
I'm doing something right now.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to get to know our candidates for board of directors. Now, they're pretty much guaranteed a seat, you know, and people have asked me, why are we doing this? Because they're guaranteed a seat, but it's a great opportunity for the community to get to know these folks. And the only way they wouldn't have a seat if no one would vote for them, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to vote for all these people. But so I guess, you know, this gives us an opportunity to get to know them. And what we're going to do is allow them to introduce themselves with, you know, we say 2 to 3 minute introduction. You know, we'll keep this light and easy breezy this evening, if that's okay with everyone. And from there, we have, sorry, it's okay. We have questions that the communication committee has come up with, and Trang reached out to some community members, and we had some emailed questions in as well. So we'll do that until about 7:20, or, you know, seeing where we are at with everything. And, you know, you all will have like, I guess 2 to 3 minutes to, again, we'll keep this kind of loose to answer the questions. And then we'll open the floor to community questions and do that for the rest of the time, if that sounds okay with everyone. Did I just shoot through that like crazy?
No, that's good.
Okay, Sam, do you have a question?
Nope.
Okay, you're just waving at me?
Good.
Okay, cool. So if it's okay with everyone, I've got a list of questions here. I'm going to ask them. I know I'm a board director. I don't want that to seem weird to anyone. That stuff's always on my conscience. But you know, again, these volunteers are going to be on the board. I'm sure they'll be okay with me asking them questions. And then again, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions during the community questions around 7:20. Does anyone have any questions on the questions?
No.
Are we ready to go? Okay, then Timmy, you have the floor.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, we've lived in this community for 23 years. We've seen, you know, problems. We've seen good things and bad things. I mean, it's a beautiful community. I've thought about volunteering for the board many times, but there was, sorry for the munchkins that keep going past here. They want to see what's going on. It's just a good time for me. I think it's going to be a tough year. I think there's lots of things that need to be addressed. As you know, I don't think anybody disagree with that. There's been people leaving. Just kind of just trying to do my part for the community and hopefully try to make things a little better.
Thank you, Timmy. Sorry, I'm going to get it right. It's going to take me a little bit. So next up, we have Samuel Shahan. I'll call you Sam if that's okay, Sam.
It's fine. All right. Been living here a little over 10 years. Really love living in the woods. Didn't think I would. I lived in the sun in the desert for 50 years. And so it's a little crowded sometimes with not being able to see horizons. But it's really pretty here. And I get out and hike all the trails, and I do a lot of walking around. And I did work for Sudden Valley for about 8 months with the tree trimming guys, or the veg control along the roadways, and got to see a lot more of Sudden Valley, and also waved a lot of people driving by. And I did learn quite a bit. And now I have been out wandering around and snooping and looking at the structures and different things in the valley. And I'm looking forward to. I was a board member now here for a couple of months, and start seeing that there is concerns from the residents, and some of it's really tough what they're hoping we can help them with, and some of it is very tough. I mean, it's it's neighbor to neighbor stuff that I have a feeling that some of them it's not an easy cure. And also I have concerns about the construction around the area and making sure that contractors treat the neighbors and our streets with respect. That's a big thing, because there's places where the roads can be torn up and has been torn up by construction equipment, and we're going to have to address that. Anyways, I'm looking forward to learning more. I've had people asking me about stuff about Lake Whatcom, so I got a ways to go about learning about their processes and how it affects us. But I'm kind of looking forward to being on the board for, what is it, 3-year term?
Yep.
Yeah. So 3 years, quite a while to learn a lot more and take care of some business and do right by my neighbors.
Thank you, Sam. So next up we have Sonia Bolt. Sonia, when you're ready, please introduce yourself.
I feel like I should just like play some music to fill up my time. Yeah, I'm also a current board director, and it's been a really interesting year. And prior to this, I was on the long range planning committee and the strategic planning team that actually worked on a survey originally with long range planning committee, and then we took the results of that survey and worked with the board, the long range planning committee, and our key staff to actually come up with the planning process. And most of what you see in the budget this year for our capital planning and expenditures for next year grew out of all of those efforts. So it's a pretty exciting thing. We've got a lot going on, included in there. So there'll be a lot of changes this next year. And then on top of that, because of some of these changes, it's allowed us to kind of see where the weaknesses are, because there's been these issues that no matter who sits in the GM chair, they fail, like it's the same types of problems. And we all spent a lot of time, the board spent a lot of time trying to figure out, well, what is this? And we talked with the management team. And so we were able to really start addressing that. We're dealing with this new organizational structure, bringing on new key people that can kind of help fill those gaps. And so there's some exciting changes that are going to be happening this next year that I'm really happy to be a part of.
Thank you, Sonia. So we'll get into our question time here. And I have a bunch of questions. And so what we'll do is we'll go by ballot order first and zigzag. Maybe someone will, maybe we'll do an open question for everyone. So we'll start with Timey. And I'm just going to have to think about that and go slow, but we'll get there. So let's see. How do you personally make decisions in situations where you know you can't please everyone that will be affected by those decisions?
Well, you can't make it based on pleasing everyone. You have to take a look at what's fiscally responsible. When we're talking about a community like this, you have to talk about, you have to look at, is the need something that is a real need, or is it something that, 2 or 3 people would really love to see? You just have to weigh all the pros and cons and just make, the best decision for the community. And you're not going to please everybody. Someone's always going to be mad at you. It's just the way it is.
Thank you, Timey. So next up we have Sam. And Sam, what ideas do you have to improve the quality life of Sudden Valley residents?
I would like to see some of the biggest complaints I've heard that's really heated with summertime issues and sharing access. So I would like to see some better parking situations at AM, PM, and the marina. And we're going to have to actually make some hard choices and get something done. And I don't have any problem with having even part-time or senior help to collect some fees at gates if we have to do something like that, like a state park setup. But that's one of the things that I want to see some improvements, because that really does seem to rub a lot of areas raw because of what's been going on with the crowds. And it's really bad is the fact that it's only for a short period of time, but we will need to do something with that.
Thank you, Sam. Sonia, so this has been a question that's been asked quite a few times, and obviously this is, let's see, I'll just ask it. It's an opinion based, I think, but what's your position on the increase of Airbnbs in our community?
Well, personally, I don't have a position on that. Whatcom County is still weighing in on that. They've been talking about it for years. We're governed by Whatcom County and the Whatcom County overlay. So ultimately, that's going to be the first step of any, opening the door to that. Secondly, our governing documents prevent it anyway. So we would actually have to rewrite that to allow for a accessory dwelling unit or secondary unit. Right now it's prevented. We actually fine people if they divide their home and rent it out. So, that's something,
if you download the game,
will have to be addressed. But I think I can tell you that I moved here from British Columbia, and the homes are similar. Most of them are actually bigger, but they're 3-story, and as communities age, people have gotten their homes paid off, but now they're in these huge houses, their children are gone, and they need that additional income. And I watch that over and over. And so it's real common there. But the problem where we are is the watershed, and Whatcom County doesn't want this additional traffic and cars, et cetera. And then we have to decide, do we want that on our roads and all that brings to, and, so it's a pretty big discussion, but the first place is Whatcom County. Then we can make a decision if we want to change anything. I do want to just quickly address Sam's point about the parking at the marina, but we do have money budgeted for this next year. So we are going to reinterpret that parking. So it should allow some of that to free up, and then additional dry slips. So we'll have more rental out there too. But we're going to redesign it, because one of the issues is people, one thing that happens is they'll go drop their boat in the water, come back to put their trailer in, and somebody's parked in their spot. So we need to get that taken care of. And then just all this blocking, but there is a way to do that and take care of it. And we kind of know when those peak times are too, and we could put extra staff there. But so we put some money there to address it this next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think this is an important question because it is a hot topic right now. There is a lot of hot topics out here, but something I ran on, and it is a very difficult thing to, determine where the line is sometimes, but I think this is a valuable question for everyone. So we'll go down the line again. Timey, what does transparency mean to you?
Well, it's communication. People need to understand the reasons why things are being done or not being done. I mean, I look at even our financial statements. My husband and I have had our own business for many years. And when I look at the financial statements, they're very, very, very confusing. And, you know, you shouldn't have to have an accounting degree to understand where the money's going. So I think transparency just in that, and Sonia, you have a financial background, it looks like, you know, that needs to be cleaned up so people really can understand how that the funds, what's coming in, what's going out, making sure, you know, the right thing is compared. Like I noticed on one area we were looking at a full year compared to 9 months. Well, that's not a real comparison. So we need to make financials very, very clear so people understand, and just getting back to people and saying, you know, we're not doing this because of this reason. We are doing this because A, it's been budgeted. This is the need, you know, just answering people. They need to know why or why not. And I think that if you can explain clearly the reasons, that a lot of the negativity will go away, because, you know, if you don't get a good answer, if you don't understand the answer, then you're going to be upset. So that's transparency to me.
Thank you. Sam, the same question to you, please, sir.
Well, I've seen transparency used as a weapon, using it as a word to just aggravate people, when actually it's like, what is the question you're asking? It's like, I don't have a problem with transparency as far as being able to say why. Totally agree with everybody needs to know why, and everybody needs to understand that everybody's ideas, if they were all implemented, would be a deal breaker. It's a budget buster to do everything everyone wants to do. It's just, but being able to tell someone why you made a choice at this time, because the budget is limited, and we already know if we want to do a lot more, we know what we have to do, and that's got to get everybody on board with dues increases. And I don't mind dues increases if the community says, heck yeah, let's go for it. It's like, if everybody decides they want to see some things and want to pay for it. But I see the community, that transparency about how it costs and who it's going to affect is very important. And right now, the way the Zoom meetings are going, and not meeting with people, I mean, it's, if there was a board meeting at the barn, it's like, when I went there was a lot of communication because people were there, and they were a little more honest in person too. It's like, and so I am looking forward to getting back to a live setting so we can have a little bit more of conversation rather than using our fingers and typing out stuff and just calling each other names in the name of transparency, which that doesn't solve anything. But the transparency, it's like some of the stuff I also see the need for some on the website. It's like, I'm never been a fan of computers and living by my life by it. It's like, I've been chasing cranes all my life and doing stuff out and hanging out in the sky, and the computers, we didn't use them. We wrote our time down on a piece of paper and turned them in, and we got paid every week, and we never had a problem. But times have changed, and we still use the computer, but too much of this stuff is just smeared around. But our website, that when you check into Sudden Valley, there's a few things that I think you need to be pretty darn simple, as far as, you know, a hazard tree button, boom, it clicks on it and somebody can get a number and put it down and it gets established. It's like, it seemed to me that with all the tech things with the computers, it's like there's a few things that people need to call. I had somebody message me about a leaning stop sign, and I thought, well, yeah, who's the best way to go? And I'd seen when I did work with Southern Valley, there was behind the scenes conversation about things like that there was no tracking, so it didn't get checked off a lot of times. It just got pick and choose. And then there was people that came out were screaming at me when we were out clearing out a road of some debris that had been placed in there by folks, and we had to open up some ditches. But this lady was screaming because there was a tree had been down in her backyard that fell off of green space and was laying across her trampoline, and had been there for a year and a half. And she's come out and started screaming at me because, number one, I was the old guy there. She figured I was in charge. And since there was a lot of kids there, and it's like, I get that. It's like, so her request didn't get anywhere. And that's one thing I would like to see changed, is in as far as some transparency, is by being able to track some of this stuff. And so the people, when they send in and get a message, it gets right to the right person, and make it simpler for our office staff too, so they know where to put it. I mean, heck, there's a few simple things we can do with pencil and paper, and then hand out the daily dispatch sheet over to somebody. I mean, there's some of this stuff we may not need to overdo it with all the electronics, but we definitely need some serious tracking for everyone, so they know they're heard, and they know they can check back on it, and everybody else can too, and give them an answer. Okay, I'll get stopped here. I can ramble forever.
It's all right, Sam. I didn't want to interrupt you. I mean, we're all going so well. You guys are doing so great. So yeah.
I'll answer it, and then I'll suggest maybe you work the other way, because I feel like I kind of might have a little bit of an unfair advantage coming in at the end every time, because I have like plenty of time to think about the answer. I just feel kind of bad for
it's all
over there.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay, well, so
we'll go backwards next time, but you go ahead.
Well, basically, I agree. Transparency has to do with communication. It doesn't mean that you're going to reveal everything. You can't always do that in business. It's not always a good idea, or you're sometimes legally constrained. And there's people that don't understand that the board can't always tell everything. Why did you go in closed session, or what happened with this employee, et cetera. But you can be honest, and the communication is a little. It's been a little difficult. One of the things that we've kind of run into is you guys kind of hit on a little bit of it, but there was a lot of there was a couple of new staff that actually, unfortunately, probably were put in the wrong positions of, it was beyond their skill set to handle certain things. And so, the tracking and that type of thing, you can't just throw people into jobs like that. There has to be, you have to train people up for that. And, but we have known that we needed some type of tracking software, good tracking software. Right now, all we have is that you can go online, but it's a downloadable form that then you fax in, or you take it to the office, So all of those things need to be changed. I agree with that 100%. We do have a new maintenance manager. So, if there's a leaning stop sign, you call maintenance. But the nice thing about him is he's starting to do that very thing that you're talking about, tracking, so that everybody will know, was this job done? He gives, I think bi-monthly reports and everything of showing what all that they've done, and keeping up with these, calls come in, what happened, what's the outcome of it. And so I think, again, you'll start to see that better. What we're hoping to do, we did put a little money aside earlier this year. It just hasn't, we haven't had time to really dig into it, but to buy that communication software that'll allow that tracking. And then we can, that can be on the website. I think the county has it. But basically you enter it, you get a number, you can go on the website and see exactly what's going on with your complaint or your issue. And so we just, like I said, you can't do everything all at once. It just takes a little bit of time. But we did set some funds aside, and also there's money for the website put aside. So that, and I know Josh and the communications committee has been working on that. So there'll be changes over the next year that'll make it more functional. And with John's help, he's going to be adding some accessibility widgets and stuff like that. So again, these things are issues. And the other part of the communication is honestly, some of it is we communicate, let's say through the views or on the website. But people will write individually to the board, and it's like, first of all, there would be no time in the board's day to respond to all of those emails every day. And the answers are most of the time are there. We've already given the answers. They have been told at board meetings, or they've been put into the views, or on the website. And it's unfortunate, but it's almost impossible. And the funny thing about it is I can tell you that I wrote the board plenty in the decade that I've lived in Sudden Valley. And the only response I got was, the board is under no obligation to respond to you. That was literally the response I got. So I think we have a much better track record with responding to people. But the truth is, it is just, it's a lot to expect a volunteer board to be able to answer 100 emails a day. It's just impossible to do. And that's why we try to communicate in those bigger, bolder ways to get the information out. I don't know how to get the information out any differently, honestly.
That sounds good. I think we're about out at the time for that question. So, sorry, I have this little checklist box of questions here that I'm working from. So Sonia, since you decided that you wanted to go first this time around, what do you think the most urgent emergency preparedness matters are for Sudden Valley?
The urgent?
That's just how the question is. I mean, however you would interpret that.
Okay, I think everybody probably already knows what I think. I actually, a lot of these things I don't feel are urgent, because I think there's been, we work really closely, like during the summer, when we had the heat wave and the burn ban and everything, plus everybody was at the beach. We were on the phone multiple times a day dealing with DNR and dealing with the fire chief. He was patrolling, DNR was going up to gate 5, and there were no issues. Community members were like, oh, somebody's gonna get blocked in, and we're gonna be trapped at the beach during a fire. And I'm thinking, well, I don't understand that. Like those people are trained to take care of that. There are plans for that. If there's ever need to evacuate this community, there's evacuation plans in place. And they're really they will come around and make sure you get out. I actually live in one of the few places in Sudden Valley that saw a fire, and the fire department came up and knocked on everyone's door. Plus they had megaphones to make sure that we were up in the middle of the night and out. And there, so I'm not minimizing any of that, but I'm just saying we work closely with the emergency planning services, and those guys are the pros. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know that I don't know what the urgent need is. I apologize for that. I'm sure that that's not the right answer for a bunch of people, but I feel very confident and comfortable with the services here and safe. And so for me personally, I don't have the sense of like there's some skies falling urgency to anything.
Thank you, Sonia. So next up, Sam. This is such a simple question, but as you will be joining the board of directors, what like committee are you interested in taking part of?
You know, I had no idea. I wasn't sure what that after I've seen that actually have staff writing things up, and so there's some help for different positions, but the communications is pretty good. But I think I probably lean towards long range planning. It can be on two because sometimes there is some stuff at communications that I would be interested in. But long range planning would be the first choice.
Okay. Why long range planning?
Because they talk about its infrastructure, and so that's something that I've got some relationship with too, and I'm also just interested in the plumbing. You know, it's like I really do. I am totally interested in the drainage of Sudden Valley and making sure that that's right. And I have been out walking and checking the drainages in some places since we had that thing coming with the county up or Whatcom. And there's some cool stuff, and then there's some old buildings that there's ways to fix things, and then there's just ways it's just too expensive. But I'm definitely interested in the culverts and the big culverts. I'm really impressed with the idea that we have salmon coming through our community, and so having fish passages under our roads. There's something to learn about that, and I'm always interested in fishing, and also the salmon and how it affects everything. And I've seen some people out with the Department of Wildlife or the Department of Resources that they were out sampling things over by Gate 9. There was people wandering around down in the creek bottom, and it's like, what are you kids doing down there? There's a bunch of scientists, you know, they're studying things, and so they're checking it out. But the fish passage setup stuff, which is also $1 billion question for the state of Washington too, is repairing all the fish passage or the change in culverts. So it's a big deal, and done right, we can get it done and have it right. If we do it wrong, it's going to cost us a fortune to fix. So I have interest in that.
Awesome. Taimi, how about you? What about a committee? Have you thought about that?
I haven't really. I like Sonia's question better. I liked it when I went first better. You know what? I don't know. Sonia's got the advantage that she's been working with the board, or rather Sam. So he has some idea. I'd really have to take a look at, some of the issues. But as far as, I'm going to answer Sonia's question instead, since I liked it better. I don't think gates 1, 2, and 3 really have like a big issue with emergency preparedness. It's flat. We not have a lot of trees we can get out. If you get stuck at the beach in a fire, it's not the worst place to be. There's a lot of water there. You'll be safe. I do think that some of the areas up in the hillier areas, they worry. So maybe we can put some, and I don't know if they're up there, but, emergency evacuation route, just so people are panicked. When people panic, they go like, which way do I go? Because there are some dead ends and that, and maybe, that's something they can do. And I think Sonia, I think you're really right. The fire department and all those excellent workers that we have out here will definitely take care of people in an emergency, and they don't need to worry as much as they do. But I do understand when you're you have a lot of dead ends and you have a lot of trees and you have a lot of hills and you're worried. I understand their concerns. So perhaps, you know, just some signs and, you know, evacuation route, that kind of thing. And as far as committee, I'll decide later.
Well, if you like communications, we always have a spot, so.
All right, well, there you go.
Grandma.
All right. All right, Sam. What is your long-term vision for Sudden Valley?
I see that we're going to have our work cut out for us to keep the trees. Um, they're not cheap to keep, but it's what we are, and so I could see us really putting in a lot more effort. I can see us that we're going to be also dealing with the runoff and the lake situation for our drinking water, and that's not going away soon. So we're going to have to be part of that. But the trees seem to be, we go and cut down some big ones, and then they're gone. And we got a lot of big ones, but you know, we take them down because they may be a hazardous tree, and then it destabilizes the one next to it. So it's going to get tighter for that, and having them healthy,
How much longer is it?
part of emergency preparedness, you know, and also with the long range plan would be also looking all around our perimeter of Sudden Valley and seeing what it would take to have a way to battle or stop a forest fire if it's possible. Because the other part is too that I'm concerned about what if. It's like we're doing what ifs, and getting out is one thing, but then we have coming back, you know, and that's long range planning. It's like when we come back, if we have a fire, how is that livable? You know, what's it going to take? Are we going to lose a bunch of systems? You know, the underground power in our area would be all right, but it gets fed by tree lines. You know, it's like, so if it got burned up, but the making sure that our infrastructure would stay in place and be usable again, because it's one thing is to get out and then everybody's out for a while and you have fire, and then when some of the smoke clears and you go back in, and how do you live? I mean, how do you come back and live in the neighborhood? And that's a big question, and that's something planning ahead and looking at ways to make sure that we've got some plans to come back in and do that, you know. And sometimes you're like insurance companies will rebuild a house, but if you don't have utilities, you're kind of stuck again. And also it's cleaning up our mess. It's like the smoldering mess. You can't live surrounded by campfire ashes, you know, so it's got to be cleared out. And so just having some sort of plan looking forward. But the biggest plan to me would be minimize the damage from a fire would be a good thing to look at. And I see some of it's hard to see that from the ground. So some aerial views of the topography and checking it out and see what it'll take, because we might be able to coordinate some of that with our roads and make sure that we can see if there's any way we can protect our neighborhoods, because it's drying out. Hopefully we could have some wet years and everything would be looking good for a while, but it seems to be leaning the other direction. So when things are drying out, we need to be prepared for that.
Thank you, Sam. Taimee, I will ask you the same thing. What is your long-term vision for Sudden Valley?
I think it's just taking care of the facilities that we have, not letting things go downhill. I mean, we've got a great golf course. We've got a beautiful marina. We've got a pool. All of those things need to be taken care of. We have buildings that unfortunately have, you know, some are gone now because things weren't maintained. We really need to take a look at keeping what we have. And, you know, I know some people will say, well, I don't golf or I don't go to the lake or I don't do these things, but these are things that bring money into our community. These are things that bring a lot of people into our community, and we need to make sure we take care of those things, because we don't want our dues to go up. If we're taking care of those things that are adding to the bottom line, that's going to keep our dues down as well. So we really need to make sure we're taking care of what we have before we lose more of what we've, more than we already have.
Same question to you, Sonia. Actually, no, I'll ask you a different question, since you want to be fair. And you're not getting the last one here. So,
oh no, it might not be fair. What's the
no, you're being fair.
question?
You're the one that said all that. I'm just trying to run the show here. So, what resources and experiences do you bring to the position of board of directors for Sun Valley?
Well, I do have a financial background, and I have a pretty extensive financial background. I've worked for over 25 years before I retired, dealing in the international market, not only handling large hedge funds, but creating financial instruments, and also finding businesses to invest in. And a lot of these businesses, they have let's say when biomass was starting to be big, it's like these companies have these great things, and the ability to implement their plan, but they're pretty awful about putting them all together and packaging them for the investors, and thinking about how is this going to work past this initial ask. And that's what I kind of see here with Sun Valley, because one of the things, there seems to have been somewhere along the line, somebody misunderstood the directive that says a board cannot tie the hands of a future board. And so they took that literally to say you can't plan. That keeps us in a lot of problems. There isn't really any real long-range planning. And so it's not been structured to be sustainable. We've got this capital investment plan, but it's not implemented things don't connect. You've got a reserve study. The previous reserve study, it built in dollars of buildings that do not. And so study.
Hey, Sonia, hold on a second. All right.
Is
You're chopping up.
Calculate. Sorry.
Hold on. Let's just give it a second.
Oh, sorry.
That's for everyone, right?
That's
okay.
Yeah.
We're getting a live feed from the moon.
back. Okay.
I'm really sorry. I had to interrupt you there. Flatlined. All right.
There's some internet issues there.
All right, let's just give it a second. Okay, we're going to move on. Timey, you've kind of already hit on this, but what is your position on dues increases?
Well, unless we need to for some reason, I really have to look at the financials closer, but I don't think at this point we need to do any increases in the dues.
I have kind of a random question for you, if you don't mind touching on something that you talked about when you were talking about the financials and being hard to read. Is it a formatting thing, or is there more stuff that you would prefer to see in there, or what?
Well, it is a formatting thing. You have some funds that are accrued. Most people do not have an accounting degree, And, my husband and I sat there for a couple of hours looking at all the financial stuff that I pulled off the Sudden Valley website. And we really had to think about what it was all saying. It was very unclear. And, over the years with our business, we've had to ask our accountant to label things clearly so that, so we can all understand what's going on. It shouldn't have to be, shouldn't have to get an accountant to read it to you. You should be able to understand, what's coming in for, what income we have, what expenses we have. There was one thing that said security income, and I'm thinking, how are we making money on security? It's just not explained. And I think that it can be much simpler, and I think that would help a lot of people.
Okay, cool. I was just curious about that because, I look at that too, and I'm just, but that's not my thing. So,
but if you're having a hard time figuring it out, what's everybody else doing, right? Like the average person's looking at it going, it's too much. It really is too much for most people to understand. We had charts that were going like, I don't even understand, like it said +5. And I go, well, what's the +5 for? And there was no explanations. It was like, it all looked really good. And it all looked very professional. But when you really sat there for a couple hours and tried to digest it, it's like, yikes.
Thank you, Timey.
Hey, can I jump in, Mr.?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. We'll do a follow up here. And you got cut off, so go ahead.
I got cut off, but that's okay. I'm sorry, I had to call back in on my cell phone, so now you get my shaky self. I just wanted to respond to that because Timey brought that up earlier, and you're correct. And Kim Harris, who's a treasurer, had mentioned that too. And she has a couple of people on her finance committee that are really good at that type of thing, that have offered to kind of create a little bit different, some additional options or easier to read type charts. What we did, one of the reasons this is a big change just with the planning process this year. And so it didn't, it's very hard for people that have been looking at documents and line items a certain way for the last decade. We didn't want to come in and just change everything and disrupt it. It made better sense that we kept the charts the way they were, the line items the way they were, and laid everything out a certain way. But I don't disagree. And I think the finance committee, you would find, will agree with you too. And so that's something that definitely does need work. And I know that they're planning. I'm working on that with the county manager this next year. Just thought I'd respond.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, looks like we're heading back to Mr. Sam. What do you think is the best, or where would you like to see improvement of ways the board can communicate to the residents membership?
That's tough. Because it comes down to generics, because we don't have time to individually do that. I have answered some emails because I wasn't even sure if I was supposed to be. So that's kind of like board 101 I've got to take. But I did answer some emails from some people because I want to have a little conversation with them about it. And I would prefer some more one-on-one with people myself. And I'm gonna have to say that would involve some other activities besides like the regular board meeting, because those things could go forever if we started trying to do one-on-one with all people calling in, it's like you got to restrict the time down because there's no excuse for having meetings run 4 or 5 hours or longer. I've seen that. I used to go to school board meetings in Las Vegas, and they were sometimes 12, 14-hour ordeals. It was crazy. And after that, it's like nothing's going on. So anything past an hour, and you're kind of losing it. But as far as any board activity going out to members, personally, I'm going to be out walking the streets in the next month and telling people where I'm going to be sitting at different times and seeing if anybody's got the time to come out and chat for a little bit. I really don't have an answer for the whole board group answering all the people in the valley all the time, besides what we already have in the view. We give out some information, and we could really use something simple such as what we do. It's like, I did see some stuff where our money goes on the website, and everybody kind of needs to know that. But I would like to see some way for a little one-on-one with some people. It's like, because I've seen some of the people are really, really upset, and you don't know what to do with it, and just throwing some more emails out generic wise doesn't seem to make them, give them what they want. And so perhaps we could have somebody in the seat. It's like once every couple of weeks, somebody's somewhere that people can actually call up and talk to your board member. It's like I wouldn't mind doing that and just get on the hot seat like an opposite phone bank where you're sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. It's like, I'm here. It's like I could see I would do that. I would go over to the admin where they could call the admin and answer the phone at 8 o'clock at night for an hour and be like a radio show, I guess. It's like, but I would like to do that.
Whatever works for you, Sam. I mean, if you're going to be out there walking around, I'll totally join you. That sounds fun. But I mean, whatever works for you to communicate. I mean, I think the board takes everyone's perspective into account in that sort of thing. So, whatever works for you. I think that's cool. So we're approaching 8 o'clock. Do you guys want to continue with these questions, or would you like to open it up to the community?
I just want to open it up.
Okay. Do you feel like you've had enough questions so far?
Sure.
Okay.
Plus,
Sorry,
it's not like I'm worried about whether or not I'm going to get elected.
I know, but it's like a Sudden Valley tradition to have an inquisition of everyone running for board. So I just want to make sure you guys are all okay with everything. Everyone's doing phenomenal. I'm excited to work with all of you. So I guess, John, if you want to open it up and we'll see if we have any takers here. I just ask everyone to time me.
I just wanted to say, sorry for the munchkins that keep running past. I have my grandkids tonight and they think this is hilarious. And now they found the YouTube channel. So they think we're all famous. And they think it's really, really funny when they get to run back and forth and be on YouTube. So I apologize for them.
That's stuff my son does too. That's awesome. Okay, so we'll open it up. I would just ask everyone, I know it gets hot political out here, just to be respectful. When I did my candidate forums, everyone was super cool to me. I just, let's just make sure we keep it no bad vibes, and let's take us away, John.
Yeah, we can bring people over. If you have a question that you'd like to ask the candidates here, there is a feature in Zoom that will raise a virtual hand for you. So down at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a PC or Mac, there should be an option to raise hand. I believe if you're on an app, then you just tap the screen and there should be a menu, and in that there will be a raise hand feature. Or if you prefer, there is a Q&A feature as well. That should also be part of Zoom. You're welcome to type in a question there, and we can just have them field those questions. So it looks like we've got 8 people with us tonight. So if anybody would like to chime in, just go ahead and do so. And I've got Nancy here. I'm going to go ahead and bring her on over. Hi, Nancy. You can go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Nancy Alionak, 4 Sandalwood Circle. I have a question for Sonia, I think. What is your vision for Barn 6? Used to be the ice barn. Maybe it'll be.
Oh, for barn 6. I'm sorry. Well, you know, the thing is that we did find out that we can salvage that. We have a couple of bids, and we'll continue to look at that and make sure that it's cost efficient. But it is just a pole barn, you know. So the idea is to just refurbish it as a pole barn, you know, new cladding, new roofing, and there's only one main structural support that needs to be replaced. The other issues with the structural support are these areas that are called lean-tos that were like add-on type areas. And so then that's just a decision of what do we want to do about that. And as we move forward, that's one of those things where, you know, we'll get the community involved to kind of participate in that. But with it being an open air, it's an open pole barn, you know, you can put roll up garage doors, sliding doors, that type of thing. And it can be all types of, you know, event, venue, farmer's market, community market. It does actually have basketball courts in there, you know, so that can be refurbished, you know, to put new flooring and everything. But the court, you know, it's a full court in there. You know, there's they've made a lot of headway on synthetic ice. So during the, you know, I mean, these are just thoughts, right? But during the winter, you know, you could conceivably put synthetic ice and make a little ice skating rink in there. And, you know, people pay money to do that. You know, you can have, there's been suggestions of doing like a mini golf course. So, you know, you could have like a little, we do have over there in the barn, what was Ken's Cozy Kitchen, you know, so it's full, you know, you could have, you know, like some type of little bistro thing. I don't know. And have mini golf. You could create a source of revenue from that area without a tremendous amount of expense. Because again, we're not talking about a full structure. It is a pole barn. And so you, like in the summer, you can open it up. If you want to have the farmer's market, you just open it up. And but the reality is if we knock that down, we're not going to be able to put anything else there because, as you know, Nancy, it's in the it's in that shoreline. So this is our only option for if we want to kind of expand and have more activity in that recreational corridor there. And then what we do is also reclad the dance barn so that they, you know, they'll match and look like they go together. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Sonia.
What's your plan for that barn, Nancy?
What you said sounds good to me. I just don't want to see it flattened and nothing take its place except God knows what expensive thing.
I agree.
All right. Thank you so much, Nancy. I'll go ahead and return you to the attendees here. And anybody else want to jump in at this point? Nobody in line. You can just use raise hand in Zoom, or if you'd prefer, the Q&A feature is open. You can pose a question there as well using your keyboard. Looks like Trang's got a question.
Go ahead.
I do.
Go ahead, Trang.
So this could be addressed to any of the candidates. Have you guys thought, because I believe the number one issue for most new or former community member is our postal service and our packaging. Has there been any discussion or what your thoughts are about putting one of those Amazon storage pickup area in the community center, since we do kind of have the space for it? Or is that something that is not possible to entertain? And I'm opening it to anyone who wants to take that.
Do you mind if I take that, Josh?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting road, because you would think it would be easy to get Amazon to call back when you're a community this size, but Amazon, it's been really strange. They don't really seem very interested about putting anything like that. Those concierge, electronic concierge type package parcel boxes, we can purchase those. And so that's something to consider as we, look at that, because if we go with the full postal, the boxes, well, if you go by what the post office, their numbers, the way that they calculate those numbers this year on the Postmaster General's report, they say that on each of our routes out here, we average 82 packages a day. Well, based on that, we already have more parcel boxes than we're supposed to. And we already all know that that's not enough, right? So we've got a combination, obviously, of the postal services delivering the, especially the tail end of the FedEx. Then you've got, just, and then the regular post, et cetera. But we seem to have a bigger problem, obviously, during the holidays. So I think that one of the things is we can look at adding maybe 4 additional postal, like each of those, the USPS have 4 boxes to them. But, it's going to cost about, it'll be over $4,000 for each of those. And you put them at what is it, 7 or 8 locations, and we could do that. And then, and then maybe offset it by, looking into doing one of the parcel full concierge package boxes that you're talking about. But the postal services right now, one of the things that's going on with them is because they say it will save them money, right? Because they don't have to use so many carriers when they can just drop them straight off. So it's a matter of trying to negotiate with them to also participate in the cost of that. So it has been ongoing, but it's just really difficult to, I think several people on the board have, gotten different information, about what's the best route to go, depending on who you talk with the postal service. So it's just something we're going to have to decide, kind of as a community. But I agree, the direction is those, we do need at least one of those large parcel service, boxes like what you're talking about. And it uses a small amount of electricity. So
They just have to be accessed like 24 hours, right?
yeah, but they can be outside. So you actually could put it outside and just on a cover, like under the cover. You could put it, you know what I'm saying, on one of the walls out there at the clubhouse or something even. So you don't actually, but I don't think anybody would care if you could put it down at the gym even, because that's open early to late. You could put it in that area, So there's a few options for that, but I think it's going to have to be a combination of the two. I don't think that's going to solve it, because you got people that don't want to drive down to gate 2 to get their parcels, right?
Sam, do you have an answer for that, or do you have a question?
2 cents worth. I don't think any of us should get in between shoppers and FedEx and UPS and Amazon and the Postal Service, because those emails would be skyrocketing. I mean, it's like we adding possibly some boxes at our postal areas, simple package boxes. If some of the carriers wanted to do something out here and they would wanted to lease space to do that and manage their own operation, I can see that. But boy, I sure as heck would not want to have us in any part of that because of the way that goes, and it's just too much. I mean, you've got pretty much about everybody in the valley ordering things. You know, the FedEx trucks never stop in our neighborhood, and private deliveries, it just keeps rolling, and I don't think we can keep up with that as an HOA. I think that's going to have to be dealt with, and a resident's going to need some to be directing their shipper to handle that and get it to their house, however they can. Which, it's like it's just going to require everybody's going to have to get that handled, because we really, I just don't see Sudden Valley being able to get in the mix of that. That is a lot of stuff, and I've seen people frustrated with it, and that's something I don't think we should get involved with.
So there actually is money allocated this year to actually deal with that. So I think that I think it's, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's close to maybe $70,000 in the mailbox fund. So I know that there's a commitment to at a bare minimum put, like I said, at least one postal box at most of the locations throughout Sun Valley, and then address the bigger issue. I'm just letting Sam know.
I think Sam said he'd volunteer to deliver everyone's packages too when he's out there talking to them.
I will tell you this, because Sam's right about one thing. I mean, well, you're right about a whole bunch of things. I don't mean it like that, Sam, but I meant like telling FedEx to deliver to your door. You can tell them to do that, and to not use the United States Postal Service, that they have to deliver to your door, and they will do that, because that's what I do.
Okay, moving on from the postal discussion. Do we have any other questions? And if you're shy, there is a Q&A down there where you don't have to say anything physically.
Seems a little quiet tonight. Oh, Sam's back. Hands raised again, Sam.
Sam, do you have a question for yourself?
Yes. Yes. Sam, what do you think about emergency preparedness? Well, the one thing I'm really concerned about is, yes, we talk about the forest fire and the giddy up and go and get out of the area, come back. But the biggest thing is for everyone to have a grab bag and also know where they're going. It's like, it's one thing you get on the road and you get out of here, but where are you going to live if the fire devastates your area? And it's like, are you, and do you have a good plan with your insurance carrier? Are they going to pay for some things? And so I think an overall grab bag situation and a personal emergency get out of Dodge setup. Also, that involves members of the community that may need help getting out. And that's a tough one, because I've met a lot of folks that have been over helping them work on stuff, and then I find out that they're 95 years old, and I'm like, wow, okay. And there are some folks that will need possibly some help with, it's like we're the fire department going around knocking on doors. But the emergency preparedness, I was impressed when I seen some of the things. It's like having some sort of emergency preparedness workshops at the barn and turn them into an all-day fest of different speakers, or have a repeating program during the day, and free hot dogs. You gotta throw something in there to celebrate a little bit. But definitely, it's like that's the biggest first part. It's like we know when it starts getting dry, well, it's like, well, that's not the time, like for usual. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to get in the car right now. It's like, but being prepared. It's like those guys, I'm not very good at that. I was always, yeah, okay. But I could sure see the need for that. And I could sure see that maybe we could get something worked out and have some community-wide trainings times, or just, and that's something we could post and do as our community effort. I know we do flea market things. Well, I think we could do some workshop stuff and have some kid stuff going on to keep them distracted while parents can actually go in and study the stuff and learn about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Uh-oh, what just happened?
I'm afraid Tammy had to step out of the meeting at this point.
Oh, okay. Did she actually leave?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have a question over Q&A at this point.
Did you want me to read it, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This question is from Richard. He says, hello. Knowing that the community was very active regarding the doubling of the dues, and Wakaiowa partnered with the results from the 2020 survey, specifically the question, okay, I'm lost here, wait. I'm gonna start again and go slower, I apologize. Hello. Knowing that the community was very active regarding the doubling of the dues, and Wakaiowa partnered with the results from the 2020 survey, specifically the question regarding rating overall satisfaction with value of services provided by SBCA in exchange of dues paid. 70% stated their satisfaction was average or below. Knowing that, is our current dues the proverbial new normal, or will you advocate to return to a more realistic dues structure? Should I repeat that last sentence? That's the question again.
I think our panelists can see it.
Okay, awesome. I'm sorry,
No, I can't see it.
Oh, you
Oh,
can't
okay.
see it
I'm on
under
my
the Q&A
phone.
down there?
I'm
No,
just,
on
Oh.
my phone, but it's okay. I understood.
but Sonia, the question is, yeah, basically, knowing that
understood.
is our current dues the new normal.
Yeah. Do you want me to answer?
Sorry about that. I got lost in the midst of the paragraph.
Yeah, if you would like to take it, that's fine. Thanks for the question, Richard.
So the thing is, the last part of the question ended with are a more realistic look at the dues. Right now, that's exactly why they are staying level, because what we have is we have a level 1 reserve study planned, and we just put out a request for qualifications for new engineering report and plan for all of our roads and our culverts, the roadsides and everything, or stormwater. I forgot exactly how it's worded. I'm sorry. AJ put that together. And but those, the thing is, the roads portion, the way that it shows up on our capital planning in the past, it's very vague. It'll just say like roads, $500,000, culverts, $200 and something thousand dollars. And on the culverts is a little more specific because the engineer reports were more specific, but we just have not updated any of the stuff. And then our reserve study, like I said, isn't accurate at all. It had buildings that shouldn't. And the thing is, with the reserve study for this year, it's a level 3. And what that all that we can do with that is just basically remove things that don't exist. And like I said, that took almost $14 million out of that reserve study. But the reality is that once we get another reserve study specialist on site and they do a level 1, we don't know what those numbers are going to be. And so it would be irresponsible to say, well, let's just go back to the way it was 2 years ago. You wouldn't do that in your own house either. Honestly, like, let's say that you got a pay increase, that your pay doubled, and then you're after you've been living that way for a certain period of time, it's virtually impossible to then go back to the way it was 2 years ago. Plus, right now, the inflation rate is almost 5%. There's a lot going on that's a little unpredictable. We're barely at the 95% collection rate. Next year, we calculated collections very conservatively at a 93% collection rate. Hopefully, that won't be the case, but we're moving into another year of a pandemic. There's already supply chain issues. Workers aren't returning to work. It is a workers' market. There's so many unknowns in there that it just didn't make sense. Now, what we'll do is once we get all of those pieces, we'll reevaluate them, right? And we'll have a much better look and a better grasp on what are our numbers, and be able to do a really solid, firm plan moving forward over the next 5 years, 10 years and more. But right now it just wouldn't be a true number, and it would be irresponsible to have lowered them.
Any further questions?
There is a Q&A response here as well from Richard.
So Richard said, thank you. From the strategic planning sessions on the website, the mission is stated as follows. Our mission is to foster a livable and inclusive community through exceptional service, transparency, and responsible stewardship of our shared resources. How do you plan to embody the mission, and where are we falling short of executing this mission? That's up for anyone.
Well, I was waiting. I was trying to give Sam an opportunity. Does Sam want to answer? I can't see any. I'm sorry. I'm on my phone. All I can see is you and me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, Sam can if he wants. I know he wasn't a part of a lot of the strategic planning sessions, but
okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Sam. I'm sorry. I just can't see you. I apologize. Well,
wait, hold on a second.
Okay.
Did you want to say anything, Sam? I don't want to.
I do want to say something.
Okay.
Sometimes those things are pretty generic or just broadly scoped. The only things that I think that in our next year is got to do around the barns and cleaning that up over there a little bit, and making sure that when we do the work, that we follow the plans all the way down to sweeping out the last dustpan full, so that it's actually, whatever project it is actually done, and the details in those plans is really key. Because I have seen some things that were done to a point and then they fail because they just didn't follow along the detail. And I could say one thing about working on the old ice barn is it's a pole barn, and it's susceptible to wind when you take the siding off. And so there's certain things like that. So because I remember I did some jobs on a McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, and we actually, the sun shading, big, is heavy, tons of metal, but we actually had to tie it down on the roof because of the lift factor of the wind. And so it wasn't held in place with all that stuff we did because it was going to shift around anywhere, but they were really concerned that it would actually take flight. And it was megatons. But that's another thing about the barn. So anything that we do should be carefully monitored, because sometimes people come in and strip and clean everything, but that needs to be a process. And the process says don't leave that thing exposed to winds until you have stuff strong enough to hold it. And little care and patience on all the details. I've seen like some details of wiring left out around the swimming pool. There's in the poles or lighting around the tennis courts that they should be torn down. It's like there's just stuff that there's a lack of detail. It's like we kind of let it go. If we're going to not have it, we need to completely clean it out. And we also need to pay attention to things that we have done, as far as like we cut holes in the fence on a tennis court. Well, that makes it not a tennis court, and we can't really use certain features for an all-encompassing use area. It's like some of those things are going to need to be done right and cared for the right way as it is. And that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see it's like everything we're doing, some serious finish on the product, so that it will last and look good for decades. That's all I got.
Thanks, Sam.
Can I respond?
Yes, please go ahead.
Well, one thing I did want to say too, Richard, that I probably should have addressed when you were asking about the dues. You know, I can tell you this board, and one of the things that we're putting in that planning process, right, is that even though, you know, like when I'm saying, well, we couldn't lower them, because we need to be responsible when we're talking about what these dues are, to make sure that it's sustainable and that we're taking care of things, just like what Sam was talking about. But we have an obligation when we work on that budget, that we consider the financial means and the tolerance of the members to pay for these things, and to be able to carry that additional debt load. So it should never just be, it's all about the facilities or it's all about the people. It is about the association as a whole, which the organization of Sudden Valley consists of those facilities, our infrastructure, the community membership, the corporation, our staff, you know, and our stakeholders that we have relationships with, you know, like the county and like Whatcom Water and Sewer, et cetera. And so there's a combination of things, and our obligation as stewards of this land where we are, you know, so there's a lot of little pieces that play in there, but there will always, if we can help it, you know, we're really doing everything we can to put in place a sustainable planning process that's not impacted by personal agendas, community politics, because our operations should never be impacted by politics. You don't see that with the county. What you see with the county is it doesn't matter who the county council member is. County operations continue. You may see some of the capital projects like the jail not happen or something like that, but your day-to-day operations are consistent, and that's key here for all of us. We all want to be able to get up and say, well, you know, when I bought here, there was a pool and it opened on whatever day, Memorial Day. I don't know when the pool opens, but that there's consistency in that. I've never lived anywhere where you don't know if a pool is going to open from year to year. It just should not be like that. Don't get me wrong. There may be an occasion that everybody in this community says, we don't want a pool. If that's the case, okay. But until that day comes, there should be a pool. We shouldn't have to think about it. And it should be in the operational budget, not in a special assessment. Because that special assessment covered up bad management and bad planning. And it should never have happened. So anyway, I just wanted to follow up on the last thing.
Okay, we have another question in here. Well, first, Richard said thank you both. Thank you, Richard. Leslie stated that the Capital Reserve Holding Fund, which is collected from the sale of homes, is funded at over $1 million. What should these funds be used for?
Yeah, they should be transferred over into the SERF fund. That's exactly where they belong. And then it should be stopped. It should go back to a realistic transfer fee. So it should be closed, should be what's in there moved over to SERF, and we go back to the actual transfer fee. I think it was 150. You could put it up to 250. It's supposed to cover the expenses associated with the work of staff, and that it became one of those things that it was a way to bring these additional funds in to pay for the revitalization plan. The community members rejected the revitalization overwhelmingly. So it's time for that to go away. We move it to SERF where it belongs, and we end that.
Anything else on that question? Trang, do you have a question?
I do, but if someone else has one, I already took my turn. I just want to make sure.
Oh, you're first in line.
I am first in line. First of all, Sam and Sonia, I just want to thank you guys for stepping up and volunteering. We all know this a volunteering position. My question is a two-part. The first one, and I can direct it to Sam since I think you're probably the newest of the board members so far, is what is it that you saw in the community, or what is it that you saw while you were living here that caused you to run or to take a bigger part to run for the board of director? So that's part one. And then the second question I have kind of ties to that. Once you start as a full member of the board, is there one area or one department or one particular project that you want to focus on, and that will be like something that you want to accomplish as a board member? Does that make sense?
Okay. First time I ran, I was angered while I was working for Sudden Valley in the way that I saw the work processes go about. It drove me nuts. I mean, I came in as a low-level worker, minimum wage almost is what and I just was looking for a little sunshine and see what was going on. And then I saw things that I did help organize crews, but I was deeply disappointed in the way I saw this caravan of Sudden Valley trucks dropping and rolling off to some whatever event. Just it's like there was we didn't get our work done. We just were always hopping around to some unknown call. And so I ran that time. I was pretty angry. And I've calmed down a little since then. Not much at times. I'm grumpy. I'm an old guy. But now I've been following the things, and I've met with the board members, the current board members. I've talked to other board members, and I thought it might be something good to be involved with. I have some time. I am interested in infrastructure. I am interested in the health of the lake and the health of the trees. And I like my neighbors. And they probably would prefer that I help them work on their houses than spend my time running around with board activities. But they haven't said that they're upset with that. But I'll still help them anyways. And yeah, so now I get to reach out a little bit. I have met some people in some other areas through some of the neighbors that I have here, and I've met some wonderful people that are enjoying their later years in life, and they're pretty cool. There's quite a few out here in Sudden Valley, and when I can look around at some of these places and I'm a kid in the room, that's kind of cool. And so there's a lot of stuff going on because other rooms I go in and I'm the old guy. I was the old guy at the elementary school with my daughter, and it's what it was. But I enjoyed that. I volunteered. I spent a lot of time I met a lot of people, and but I was always in a little different spot because of I wasn't the usual range of parents. But when I went into a place, I listened, and sometimes I calmed some folks down too because of I just wasn't in their realm, and so they got a chance to take a breath and calm down. It's like there was I've experienced that in a lot of places where I was in kind of a odd fish out of water, but I'd go and listen and I'd see things that they didn't see. And that's kind of why I've also run for the board. There's things that I see that have been rushed by because, everybody's out here working for a living. Heck, even the folks that are retired, they have a game plan and they're running around rushing and they're doing their thing and they miss things too. They see stuff, and then I drive around and I see the stop signs. I see some of the road conditions. I see places where I know there should be signs and they're not there anymore. And then I have met with people that or had their concerns about life in Sudden Valley, and I'm gonna see if I can help with that. That's why I ran for the board this time, and I figured I got 3 years and see if I can learn a lot more and actually help make a difference out here. And then there's the other thing too that I know I don't get steamrolled very easily because I am a cranky dude at times, and but I'm sensitive too, so I'd say, yeah, uh, but yeah, I'm looking forward to actually learning quite a bit about the board. I mean, there's a lot of the laws that, everybody wants to argue about, and how all of a sudden everybody's failing because of some law, and there's things and the dispute and stuff. But I never hear them say, it's like, well, your street's clear, right? Your drainage is working, your house isn't flooded, but you're arguing about all these little things that, some of them all matter, but the big things, I want to make sure they're happening. I want to make sure the roads are clear, the access is in and out. Some of these roads have got to be repaired. I'm going to be out walking on some of them, taking pictures and talking with people. I'm sure I run into people all the time when I'm up on the trails, and I have nice chats with them. And I meet a lot of people from, I can't believe people actually hike the trails around here, and they come from other parts of the country, and they get told about some of the trails around here, and they run into them, and they love the area. They think it's great. And so there's a lot here that we have that's really great. There's some things that we need to take care of. It's like there's a lot of folks that like the golf course. I don't have anything against the golf course. I don't golf. I did before. It just didn't stick. Didn't become my thing. I went over to the disc golf course and met some really great people over there, and they showed me everything that was going on there. I was impressed, but I'm not a disc golfer. I did that in 1980, and that didn't stick. So there's a lot going on. I mean, personally, I think if we could squeeze into the world's greatest go-kart track, I'd be for that. If we could do that somewhere out here, it's like I'm not dead in the water yet, but I'm hoping to learn quite a bit more. I really like the fact that there are people on the board that are very knowledgeable about their field of work and their ability. They know the books. They know office management. There's a lot of people that know a lot of things out here, and actually there's people from all walks of life out here in Sudden Valley too. And hopefully, if we can keep it toned down a little bit, and they could actually, hey, maybe they call me up when I'm sitting in the chair and waiting for the phone call, and they could chew me out, or It's like, I hope I wouldn't have to be behind one of those screens where it stops the beer bottles or something. But I would really, I would really like to actually let some of those people vent. And because also I do pick up some stuff that they say. There's a lot of times there's people saying a lot of stuff, and it can really push buttons, but there's something in there. Usually there's always something in there. And I'm hoping that folks can let that come out, and we can use that to all work together.
Thanks, Sam. I'm so glad that you were doing this year. It's always a pleasure, like, sitting close to you during the board meetings and knowing you for so long. So thank you.
Hey, I think we may have lost Sonia to internet issues.
Okay.
There
Looks
is
like we have a follow-up to the question she answered. So let's give that a second. Are there any further questions?
There's a question from, waiting for Sonia. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, this is probably a follow-up to the previous question.
It is.
Any other takers? Anyone else out there? Okay, let's just give Sonia a second. Did Timmy say that she was leaving and I missed that? I feel awful.
She brought it up in chat.
Okay.
It was pretty quick.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
We may need to have Sonia answer this some other way.
Maybe she can send that as an email and she can follow up.
Leslie, would you mind emailing that in, depending on what happens here? Or we can have
because that seems more like a board, like a
it's you got to have that board knowledge there. But yeah, we can get you an answer on that, Sonia or Leslie. Actually, here's Sonia right here. Speak of the Sonia.
Oh, hello. Is it over?
No, you have a follow-up question here waiting for you.
What is it?
Yeah, it's from Leslie. 8:35 p.m. The purpose for the Capital Reserve Holding Fund was to cover extraordinary expenses, such as replacement of a bridge in conjunction with culvert replacement, which was expected to cost over $1 million. Can we expect that these expenses will now be covered out of SURF or by a special assessment?
There's the SURF and the roads fund, and what that says isn't that. It says roads and I don't know the exact can't remember the exact wording, but it is for capital replacement, and so it actually, with the roads plan, you could just put it over into roads. If that'll make Leslie feel better. We can put it into the roads reserves. I just said SURF. I should have said reserves. And because again, my thought was it would go towards roads, to be totally honest. But I don't recall that it could only be used for bridges and like these big culverts. But the thing is, if you're doing, massive road infrastructure, you're dealing with the shoulders, you're dealing with the culverts, you're dealing with the stormwater. It's not inexpensive. I don't have any problem using it on the roads and everything like that. That wasn't the point. So I don't, like I said, so perfectly, I support 100% for it to be used on dealing with our road system. Does that help? I should have said it would go into reserves. I apologize for that.
I think that's fine. That's more of a board question too versus potential candidate, though you guys are going to be on the board. So
well, she just asked it. What did I That's okay. She just
Okay,
asked,
that's
what did I
fine.
think?
I just
Yeah.
know that, you
I didn't
know,
commit
if I had that
everybody
question,
to
I
it.
would have just been.
It's a fair, it's okay. That's a fair question. I would want to know.
Okay. Well, don't say that I'm saying something's not fair, because that's not what I said.
No, no, no. I didn't mean it like that. I mean, I don't mind if she asks that.
All right.
Sam
And I
has a
should
question.
have probably been, I should have just vaguely said reserves. I think it should go into reserves, and then, yeah, the board needs to determine how it gets allocated, not me, but relying on how the initial intention was.
Sounds good. And it looks like Sam has another question.
Yes. The big bucks in the bank. And we're talking bridges. Right? Yeah, bridges cost. They cost less if you plan for them and get bids. But having some money like that set aside in case of a failure. So once we do have the reserve or have our studies done to make sure that we don't have a surprise, because if we have a surprise, we're not going to be getting a long series of bids. We're going to have to get something done right away, because all of our bridges are essential for travel in and out of the valley. I mean, some places we could divert some traffic and come up with an idea that would allow us some time, but it sure would be nice knowing that we have something there for an emergency, that something taken out a bridge. So it's a big thing. Bridges are very expensive, and they get really expensive when they get knocked out by some catastrophe or some surprise. But it's nice knowing we have that money there to back up some bridge.
You got to watch out for that salmon, right? So we are at 8:47 and I don't see anything else. Would you guys like to wrap this up? Sam can go all night. Sam, Sonia, do you guys have anything further that you would like to say to the community? Sam, please go ahead.
Vote. To get that paperwork out, take a look at it. If you need some help with it, talk to your neighbors, share it a little bit. But by all means, please, everyone out there, ask your neighbor if they sent in the ballot. It's important. Say, okay, hey, if you don't like it, vote no. If you do, vote yes. Say, you like me, vote for me. You don't vote for me. It's like it would hurt my feelings. But yeah, just vote. Everybody vote, and vote early, vote often. That's it.
Not too early.
Don't vote too often either.
You're going to get N&E on our committee here.
No, don't do that.
Do you have anything you'd like to say, Sonia?
Well, I wanted to thank you guys for doing all of this, the communications committee, and all of the community members that hung in there through all the weird, choppy communications and stuff, and for being there. And yeah, I mean, we're doing our best, and we're listening. I gotta say, Tammy hit the nail on the head. We can't make everybody happy. We can't do everything. It's just impossible. And I know Leslie understands that too. And but I'm really proud to be part of this board who actually the community always comes first in every decision. And it's just a really nice thing. We've got a really good relationship going with the management team. And so I'm really happy to see how things are unfolding. And I think as we move into next year, a lot of the stuff this foundation that we've been working on, I think the community will start to see more of that. I know it hasn't gone as smoothly or as quickly, but change is messy and it isn't always fast. And but the thing is, yeah, I think that the community will be really happy with the way everything goes. And obviously, we need everybody to participate. And there's open positions on NNE and ACC. And your feedback about any of the planning stuff, you can write on Long Range Planning Committee at lrpc@suddenvalley.com. And just, if you've got ideas or thoughts, you can do that. We do have another survey coming out before the end of the year, thinking about another month or so. That one's going to be strictly online for this series, but it's the annual community survey. So they'll have some more of those capital planning questions on there too. So we'll promote that when it comes out. But yeah, so I just want to thank everybody for participating.
Thank you, Sonia. Now that we've had your sign off, we have one hand raised and an additional question in the chat, or the Q&A. The Q&A came in first. Do you guys want to answer these?
That's fine.
Okay, so we'll do these two last questions, and then we will call it an evening. So the first question, whoever wants to take this, would you support challenging Wakaiowa to have it corrected? Mr. Sam, go ahead.
Yes.
Anyone else?
How many other people are there? Let me look around and see it.
Well, you're sitting there without your hand raised, so.
Look, I support a couple of things. One is, if anybody knows anybody in Jamie Peterson's district, you need to encourage those people to not vote for him, because that guy, literally, Senator Jamie Peterson, is one of the people that helped. The intent behind Wakaiowa was supposed to be that they were standardizing the Uniform Common Interest Ownership Act. They've been working on it for many, many years across the country in several states. There was a standardized thing at the last minute, at the 11th hour. He added that language in there. That language was not supposed to be in there, and it was not supposed to impact pre-existing communities. We fought that. We did get a bill introduced, but he basically wouldn't let it have a hearing or anything like that. And the problem with challenging it at this point is he's woven it throughout other legislation, including there was also the update of the nonprofit act, that the Corporations Act that takes effect on January 1st. He wove Wakaiowa through there. He's woven it through several different pieces of legislation. It's very difficult when you do that. It's not a simple challenge. It kind of adjusts where you're coming from. The only angle here would be that to remove pre-existing communities out of there, because there's not really an actual challenge because of the way he's woven it in there. And so it's not as simple as it would have been 2 years ago. It should have been challenged immediately when it happened, but that's not what happened. And so here we are now. And so where we are now is, what are you challenging? Legislative overreach. That's the extent of it. Or you have to just try to convince the legislators to actually remove Sun Valley and other communities like us remove the pre-existing community clause out of there. And so it's not a legal challenge. It's more of a going after the legislature to, you can put a bill forward for that and everything, and do it that way. But right now, I don't see a legal challenge to it because of the way that it's been woven through there. But if it was 2 years ago, 100%, I would have said a legal challenge. But I just don't see a path forward that way. But we definitely, that's one of the reasons that we did the bylaw limitation to to cap those limits that protects the community because the legislature didn't. We're building all of these processes in place to ensure our operations work a certain way. These bylaw amendments, just like Sam said, vote. It's real important that you guys all vote in favor of these bylaw amendments, because these amendments are the additional pieces to ensure protections of, in case there's a rogue board or mismanagement or anything like that. All of these things we have to put in place to try to protect the community. We have to do that for ourselves. And so I hope everybody votes in favor of all of those bylaw amendments. One of them has to do with allowing everyone to vote, not just members in good standing, because Nancy wrote a really nice piece about it. And one of the points she was making, Nancy Alienak, is that now more than ever, because it's almost impossible to defeat, because of Kiowa, to defeat the budget, it's more important than ever of having a say in who the directors are. And so everyone should have a voice. So please vote for those amendments. And the other thing is then it also just adds a few more of those legal restrictions that help protect everybody.
All right, we have time for one more, and that is Leslie with a raised hand.
Yeah, I'm bringing you over here, Leslie. Go ahead and unmute when you're ready. All right, go ahead, Leslie.
John, I don't have a question. I don't know why you think I do. I had the 2 questions on Q&A, and that was it. Thank you.
No problem. Looks like your hand got raised somehow, but I'll go ahead and move you back to the attendees. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Leslie.
Sorry about that, Leslie. It was great to hear you, though. So yeah, thank you all for being here. You did a wonderful job. I'm so sad that Timey isn't here, but it was great to meet her. If you're seeing this later, Timey, you guys all did wonderful, and I'm looking forward to serving with you further for the 2 of you. So the ballots have gone out, and you should receive those. For those of you who are watching, oh look, that's awesome. Anne's got a picture of it right there. Do not throw it out. Do not throw it in the pail by the mailbox, please. So if you do not happen to get a ballot or you have an issue, please visit suddenvalley.com/AGM. Everything about the annual general meeting, I have to correct myself on that because these acronyms are insane for new people. The annual general meeting will be soon, and all of the information for that, and also the candidate bios from the lovely people who spoke tonight, are on that page, and the contacts for ballot issues are on there. So again, that's suddenvalley.com/AGM, 1A AGM, suddenvalley.com/AGM. Sorry, John, I am not as good as you with this kind of stuff. Oh, that's awesome, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
So yeah, thank you all for being here. Huge thanks for John for hosting us as always. And you guys did wonderful. And I hope everyone has an awesome rest of their evening. Thank you, committee, for being here and support.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Good
Have a good night.
job.
Thanks, everyone.